Thanks for joining us today. Our guest is Dan McNichol, infrastructure analyst, award-winning author, and fifth-generation road builder. Driving a 1949 vintage Hudson, Dan just launched a cross-country tour he's calling the Dire States Tour. Tell me a little bit about Mrs. Martin and the tour. What motivated you to take this journey, and what do you hope to accomplish?
I've been asking myself, why am I doing this? To circumnavigate the United States in a 1949 Hudson is exciting, a bit romantic maybe, but the car, it's so friendly, it's so fun to look at, and where this subject, infrastructure and engineering, can be so heavy, so overwhelming, the car is meant to be something that you can quickly walk away with the message. America's infrastructure is as old, rusty, and energy defunct as this 1949 Hudson. I think it's a powerful visual.
What about the issue of safety and welfare for the public? How is our aging infrastructure affecting communities across the country?
What I find fascinating about engineering is going back to the time of Rome. When there's failure, eventually, if you're fortunate, there's success. Success is often born from failure. And I saw that with the I-35W bridge collapse in 2007. That to me was a great example, 13 months later, of the phoenix coming out of the ashes there. We saw this magnificent superstructure come out of the Mississippi River. And that to me is what I'm seeing all over. Cataclysmic failures, whether they be natural or man-made, and then we see the solutions coming to be. I would say in all, we're looking at an absolute failure of our entire system, and I believe we're on the verge of rebuilding it, and that could be very exciting for the next 10, 20 years.
Dan, as you go across the country, do you see conditions that are in line with what ASCE saw in its 2013 report card on America's infrastructure?
What I'm seeing is the restraint the American Society of Civil Engineers has portrayed. When they look at infrastructure, I think they're measured, and they balance their message very carefully, and that's good, because sensationalism doesn't belong with this kind of weighty subject. But I'm finding it to be a bit worse. I'm feeling it to be much worse than what people often think or see on the surface, because I go into the systems, I go into the bridges, into the tunnels, and I'm eager for the message to get spread out even further, and that's what I hope to do on this Dire States tour.
Dan, what are you hearing from people you meet along the way? Do they understand the problem? Are they concerned?
There is a deep concern, and I'm excited to be here in Washington. I was a White House appointee for a short while and worked at the Department of Transportation and saw that bipartisan support on transportation issues alone. But I think, just like transportation, engineering gets bipartisan support. What I feel, though, and I've been there so I can understand, politicians do not lead. They're designed to follow, really, follow our lead, the public's lead. And I think politicians do need to hear, they do need to know that the public has their back when they take the initiative to build. I'm hoping soon, Casey, for the day that politicians are actually voted into office because they're leading and building, not because they're stopping projects.
In other parts of the world, it's been, I think, a little easier for public-private partnerships or just out-and-out privatization to occur with, infrastructure projects, which in the United States are traditionally, public works and publicly financed. Do you think the nation's ready for some innovative approaches to solving the infrastructure crisis?
The money. It always comes down to the money, and I find that I think what's happening now, it's really exciting. Virginia, Texas, Florida led us in P3s, public-private partnerships. And now the laggers, so the three laggers are now joining the three leaders. I'm seeing a full circle where Pennsylvania, New York, and Massachusetts, these Rust Belt states, are joining these other leaders in this private-public partnership initiative. We need the money, and there's a lot of it sitting on the sideline. You think Canada, they spend about 25% of their money privately on infrastructure. We're at 1%. The state of California is bigger than Canada. Think of the potential to get into this game if we put the private money to use.
Dan, thanks for joining us today. Very informative discussion. For more information, visit ASCE's website at asce.org. Thanks for tuning in today.